That brings us to our first corporate then that we have at around 9:30 a.m. order. Thermax, that's the one on our radar. Remember, the company bagged a 550 crore order for two fuel gas desulfurization systems with a capacity of around 500 megawatts. With this, Thermax's order book now stands at around 6,500 crore rupees. To discuss this, the order book, as well as what's the outlook in terms of business, well, we're currently joined by Mr. Ashish Bhandari, the MD and CEO of the company. Hi, Mr. Bhandari. Thanks so much for joining in. Well, before we talk about business, just want to understand, we've had some kind of restrictions that have been put in place owing to this, the virus again turning up and unfortunately disrupting things a little bit. Has it had any kind of impact on your business?
Firstly, a very good morning and a very happy new year to you and to all your viewers. Our business has not been impacted much as yet. All our factories, all our service sites, they're all 100% functioning. At the offices, earlier this week, we came down to 50% attendance, and we will monitor it on a daily basis. As a company, we monitor all of our employees. How many do we have that are vaccinated? How many employees that we have that are hospitalized, have got COVID? So far, the numbers seem to be manageable.
Okay, the numbers seem to be manageable. What about the situation on the ground as far as orders are concerned? Has there been any kind of slowdown in orders, any deferral of orders? I know it's too soon because perhaps the third wave has just begun, but how is the sentiment at the moment?
I think it's just too early to say. We will have to wait at least another month before we get a sense of how things have coming out and how various sectors are affected. I've said it previously as well that our recovery has been broad-based. We've had a lot of sectors, including realty, including food, pharma, multiple sectors that came through after the second COVID wave quite strongly. In this, as we go through this third COVID wave, it remains to be seen how any of them will be affected. And so I think it's only by February, March that we will be able to take a look back and say what happened. So far, there doesn't seem to be that much of an impact. And I think even from a day-to-day business perspective, when I talk to other members of CII, when I just speak with people in general, business seems to be continuing as normal.
Okay, business is continuing as normal. The last time we spoke, you told us about your interest in the solar division. You said that projects are, you're picking up projects there. In fact, you're also leading in certain biomass projects to do with climate change, etc. Can you tell us since then, what has the order book looked like, particularly for renewable? And what kind of growth or opportunities do you see there? Because that clearly is the buzzword now.
Sure. Sonia, as you can imagine, we've just finished a quarter and until our earnings release, and even otherwise, some of our numbers in this particular sector, we would like to hold until it's the appropriate time and we show our books accordingly. Suffice to say that in biomass, Thermax is one of the biggest players, especially when it comes down to providing utility as a service. So that part of our business continues to see a fair amount of growth. On solar also, we are starting off a low base. Yeah, so there's a long way to go before we can call ourselves as a meaningful player in the solar sector. But the moves we have made over the last few months seem to be bearing result. But on solar, we have a long way to go. On biomass, very excited at the opportunities. And some of what has happened in the coal sector is actually making both the climate change part a viable discussion, but also from a cost and a cost point of view with what has happened on the coal side, biomass is becoming more and more competitive. So that entire biomass ecosystem in India is going through a big change in terms of that sector being formalized, a lot of established companies coming up in terms of how biomass is sourced, how is it delivered, newer applications like bio-CNG, various different things that are coming up. This whole sector is one worth watching for the next several years for India.
Take that point, Mr. Bhandari. The street likes your optimism and more importantly your resilience in wake of the Omicron worries that we have right now. So let's hear more from you. What's your outlook on the way input costs are going by?
And do you see some pressure on your margins to continue? And secondly, your order inflows. Up until the second quarter, you had around 1,800 crore worth order inflows. And thereafter, we've been counting close to around 1,300 crore worth orders have concluded. So what does that take your overall order book to?
Look, again, on the specific numbers, you'll have to wait another month and to see where it is. So I think that would be the right time to share the information. The guidance that we have been giving on reasonable strength on orders continues. I think we have said that the recovery has been broad-based. We were waiting for some of the bigger government projects to start concluding, and you've been seeing some of those recent announcements that are consistent in that sense. Where it comes to input costs, there's definitely an impact. Input costs continue to go up, and each quarter we plan for input costs, but they still are going up even more than our expectations. So multiple of our business lines are indeed affected, and I don't see that slowing down. I hope it doesn't continue to go as much as in the last few months, but the come down is not imminent. And I would say that for India and for the multiple sectors, it's not necessarily a bad thing, because the input costs are going up because demand is strong across sectors.
Does that mean margin pressure then, Mr. Bhandari?
Oh, definitely. There is margin pressure in, as I said, in not just in one sector. Steel is going up, commodity prices around a lot of the raw materials that we use, including petrochemical-based raw materials, freight prices going up. So there is significant commodity pressure, which will reflect a little bit on our margins as well.
All right, Mr. Bhandari, give us a few numbers then. How much of your business comes in from the new age sources of energy? You briefly touched upon it. What is the percentage in terms of business coming in from there? Where do you see that number headed to? Also, you said that, margins could be at risk. I'm looking at your past quarter. You've been in that range of around 7 to around 7.5% on. I'm not asking you for the past quarter, that's quarter 3. But what is the range in terms of margins going ahead? And what also does it mean in terms of revenues? So new age business, new age sources of energy, your margins, as well as your revenue growth. Go ahead.
I'll give you some general trends without giving specifics. I think Thermax's order book currently is 70% of what we call is relating to green businesses, which is driven by applications like waste heat energy, biomass, solar, very specific water applications. So a variety of these sectors that together account for 70% of our order book. The remaining 30% is driven by directly fossil fuels and related businesses. Over the past few years, the number of the percentage is going more and more towards green, and I think that trend will continue. It's something that we actively support both from our investments, but overall the market's looking for relevant solutions that are greener any which way. So that's the first bit. On margins, our push is more and more to grow our products businesses, our services businesses. Many of our get digital into our products. That has to be balanced off against continued margin pressures in many of our business lines. The nature of our business is such that we use a fair amount of steel, fair amount of raw materials in variety of our businesses. And when those input costs go up, they reflect in our margins. And many of our projects are somewhat long cycle. So the ability to pass pricing is not so much. We would like to get to beyond this 8% and then closer to 10% from a PBT perspective, but that number is definitely challenged in the short run.
All right, given that you are in your silent period, you did give us a lot of qualitative analysis on the industry. Thank you so much for joining us, and once again, have a great 2022. It was a pleasure speaking with you. Thanks a lot. Well, that's the word coming in from Thermax. The stock, by the way, loves what the management was saying. Look at it. It's up almost 6% right now and soaring away as we speak. Can't say the same about the market, which is absolutely flat, just consolidating its gains from the last 2 days. Now dipped into the red.